And all right,
My coffee temperature is around 101 degrees right now.
dang man, dang on Netley. I got this guy here. It's keeping me pretty toasty.
Yeah, they're sponsoring this podcast today.
Yeah. I'm trying not to put the name on there. I'm not gonna mention, but it was snowing out today on the way here, driving through a blizzard. But yeah. So what's going on? I'm Great Grandpa BB. This is Ryan Poignon. Welcome to the show today. You know, when you start off, you feel like you're on a TV show.
Oh, yeah. I'm just going to cross my legs and sit back and try to comprehend everything.
I've watched interviews before.
Yeah.
They have cups of coffee on the table.
Yep.
So we're in an artist. We're in your studio right now.
Yes. That's correct.
This is rad as hell. Can I grab this real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. You
This
break
is,
it, you bought it.
This is what you just did today.
Yeah.
This guy's pretty rad.
It's a little penguin chilling on an ice cube.
I feel like it's our hood ornament on this interview right now.
Oh, yeah. He should have a little cup of coffee, too.
Right? Yeah.
With a microphone. Oh, maybe I could, hook you up with a little, mock setup of you.
Yeah, like a little glass manger scene of,
Oh!
and, in the main, it's a light bulb, and we're trying to... It doesn't matter.
Yep. So, what's in the news today?
Yeah. You know, just thinking about tough, big ideas, okay?
Uh-huh.
On the way here, I was trying to think about what to ask you, and we're both artists. We both have our own kind of methodology to get to the spot, and we were just talking about it, what kind of classes should we take next, and how many things can we do, how many things can we learn, you know? And then everything we're doing is a combination of all of those things at the same time. It's how do you pull all these things together
Without getting overloaded with useless shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to travel a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like that really helps my creative side, because I see how other, especially artists, I love meeting artists that are in different area codes, because it's we drink different water, we walk different streets and stuff, and then the whole, I don't know, the whole mentality is almost different, but we're all on the same path of bringing ideas out of our heads into reality.
And art is almost it's noticing the littler things too, you know? It's those have the most significance in everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
You know? I like how you pointed that out too, that's
traveling on the open road is fun.
Yeah.
Open road, open mind. It's
I dig that. I went on a trip with you once. That was a good time.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to that.
But yeah, I mean, when I was out in the redwoods, just noticing the leaves on ferns on the ground that were completely foreign to me.
Yeah, it's we're aliens traveling into the other people's planets.
Yeah, it's I have a landing party and I'm in Star Trek all of a sudden, and
then the locals look at you who the fuck is this guy from Ohio?
Yeah,
he's never seen a tree.
What's really weird too, have you ever been at some place and the people there? Well, I mean, I had this experience where I went out to Portland and out to Oregon there, and I knew somebody from Ohio, and they're hey, come out to Portland. And then they ended up being busy at the time, so they're hey, stay with my friends. We're all from Ohio too.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm okay, cool, I guess, So we had this Ohio tribe happening,
yeah. I feel a lot of people from Ohio go to Oregon.
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, it just seems I know a lot of people that migrated to that area.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. I mean, Ohio is very a specific kind of a thing, you know? If you don't adhere to our culture here, you're,
I feel wherever I travel, people can spot me out and be you're from Ohio, aren't you? It's what, was it written on my forehead? Or,
right.
I feel we don't notice the way that we talk, but definitely when we travel, people will recognize that Ohio.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. It's they say that Ohio has like the most like flatlined speech.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of like reporters and stuff. One of the things they learn is like to speak like you're from Ohio.
Right.
It's like, oh shit.
Exactly.
How am I speaking?
Oh man, I forgot what I was gonna say.
But when you travel like south or on the West Coast or go up the East Coast, everybody has different styles of talking. That's like,
yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yep, that was. That's my light switch.
We'll just cut all this part out.
That's all right.
Fuck, sorry, dude.
There goes your pacemaker.
I'm dropping the pace of this whole podcast right now.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
So I do want to.
Oh yeah, I remember what I was gonna say.
Yeah, go ahead, cut me off.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I like being from Ohio because, like, when I was in Portland, like, I felt like I was like one of them or something. But when I'm here, I feel like I'm against the grain. You know.
Oh yeah.
And it provides a lot more opportunities for me as an artist being here because no one's doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But in Portland, everybody's doing what I'm doing.
Yes.
You know? And it's like...
Yeah, the cornfields that divide us give us more opportunities instead of being in an overpopulated city where, you know...
Yeah, we're definitely rural Ohio.
Yeah, I noticed that through, you know, like just artwork in general. Like, sure, you could move to like Detroit and be in a scene.
Yeah.
But being in the middle of nowhere and being in a scene is like, it lets my mind be free from what other artists are doing. So when I do meet up with them, I find out that I do have these original ideas that, you know, speak to other people too. Yeah,
for sure. Because you're so far removed.
Yeah.
You know, that you kind of get your own, it's like you get, like, there are other people in this area doing art too, but like no one's really doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't run into that competition, feeling as much maybe.
Which I hate the whole idea of competition when you're talking about music or art or anything where you're trying to express yourself. Like, when it comes into the competition thing, that always, like, just blows my mind. It's like, why can't we respect what each other's doing and not step on each other's feet?
That's the best way to look at it.
Yeah.
I was guilty of being competitive in music before.
Yeah.
Where you just played a show, you're like, man, we totally killed all of those bands.
Yeah,
tonight.
and it's like, why, you know... It should be like, I did, you know, you did the best as yourself in admiring what the other people bring to the table. Yeah. And I think a lot of artists are caught up into that. Like, it is a race, but it's a race with yourself.
It becomes problematic at points, too. Like, I know I played a show one night up at Annabelle's, and this band that was going on before us, it was like their first show. They were just like a real, like, balls to the wall, heavy metal band, you know. And, like, we come up, like, right after them, you know? And it's, like, we're, like, half surf, half, like, folk, half, like, rock and roll. We didn't really know what we were in a way. But just the fact that band played first, it definitely threw me out of my own element.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm like, okay, like, how are we going to, like, you know, adhere to this band that we're coming up after, you know? Yeah. And it kind of changed the whole way that I approached that set, and not for the better, you know? Yeah. Like, it was like, I should have been more focused inward and like, okay, how can I make these songs the best that they are? Because that's going to be the best that I can do, you know? Yeah, it's tough. That's the truth. Yeah,
for any artist, it's hard finding your way on what you feel good about too. Like anybody can make, I don't know, cookie cutter ideas that are, you know, just out there with everyone else, but to really find your own line is the true definition of an artist, I think.
And that's in life too. That's
business,
that's
definitely.
like, you know, how do you approach like a competitive market, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
like we
yeah.
live in like it's almost like the whole society's set up to be that way too.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like yeah, I kind of forgot about that. Like cuz when you think about it as an artist and like what you're saying and what you're doing and your
Yep.
approaches and your perspectives, it's like yeah, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But then also like there's this other pressure.
Oh yeah. Not only
Like
do I get it from the artist aspect of like, the pressure of like what somebody else is doing or what I'm doing, but also owning a small business, I have
yeah.
almost like competitors in a way of being
Yeah.
in business. Usually business is like who's making more, not what can we do together to everybody, like to
Yeah.
better everybody. So
Yeah.
I found that being pretty hard, like being an artist, owning a physical business, and then watching a guy that owns a physical business for 30 years and that's what he does is outside of the art,
Wow.
thing. And then
Yeah.
like how they look at money. Like if you're a businessman, your idea is to make money, but as an artist, your idea is to make ideas.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
or not they make money or not, sometimes you score, sometimes you don't. But it's just like getting along with the business people is hard for me because I've always just did ideas
Yeah.
that aren't in a catalog that you can just order, get a wholesale
Right.
price, and then flip the product. Like,
Yeah.
so it's like it's a wild,
And that's a line between how like what can I make that's gonna sell or what's my pure vision of this thing, right?
Yeah.
And so there's like two sides of it. Ross Serling used to talk about this idea being on the Twilight Zone, like writing the Twilight Zone and having to adhere to the sponsors of this
Yeah.
TV show. Like
Yeah.
they're playing the commercials in between the show, and they have some sway over what's in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, all right, I'm only writing this show if I retain complete control over the vision of
Yep.
it, And it's like maybe some things like the toothpaste changed in a scene, or like maybe they didn't like eat
Yeah.
apples in the scene, or something, like
oh, this is
yeah.
this weasel nut coffee is
Yeah.
excellent.
But I mean, Rod Sterling he always had a Chesterfield in his hand.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like,
Can't forget that sponsor. I get free smokes, man.
yeah, like, well, they give me free cartons to say this,
Yeah.
so
Now I do find like the more that I evolve and the more people that shop here at my studio, I do have to listen to my customers. When I was
Yeah.
a young artist, it was
Yep.
just me listening to me. And
Yeah.
I have found myself doing a lot of things that not necessarily I want to do out of like passion, but I
Yeah.
do because I know that's what people want too.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah.
I don't know.
You're finding yourself like a niche, and like
Yeah.
you're able to like fulfill
But I
it,
gotta
basically.
personally stay happy. Like I always
That's true,
feel
too.
like
Yeah.
how people have good and evil on their shoulders. I have the
Yeah.
artist and the businessman. The businessman's like, you
Yeah.
need to pay the bills, man. Like,
Yeah.
and then the artist is like, oh, let's play in the flowers. Like, So it's always a battle between those two, and then keeping just a fine divide between those two people, and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, for sure.
and in the middle is where the happiness is technically.
Yeah. So one of the projects I know that you like undertook to try to find like what you like to keep you sane, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Is the Ron Trout, man.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Hey Ron, if you're watching.
that's such a great like
Which was
spin.
inspired by great grandpa BB
Oh,
because
Jesus.
I enjoyed
That's
when
an
I
honor.
first met
Yeah.
BB, I didn't know anything about him besides he was like 100 and some years old, but he had found the fountain of youth somehow, and it's like, and then Danny Longhair too. That was another person
Okay.
that I met where like
Yeah.
when they're on stage, they're not the person, they're like this mythical creature.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I always wish I had something like that, but I'm not that talented at music where I could like
Right.
tell my story with a song, and I have
Yeah.
to do it in different ways. But the whole Ron Trout experiment was definitely spawned from those two people.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's an honor, man.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers to
Yep.
that. But yeah,
And a lot of
that was a great take. You
Yeah.
know? Like
and
the only other way besides music that I can really like see that like fitting a category is like stand-up comedian or something.
that's
you
pretty
know?
much what Ron Trout is.
Yeah,
Like, in his
like-
own way.
Yeah, yeah,
And just like Great Grandpa BB, it's just you being you, having fun.
yeah. But it's
And-
like I put on this character.
Yeah.
And just kind of run with it. What would this guy say?
Yeah.
You know, and then like what would I want to say is this character?
Oh yeah.
You know, and
Ron Trout's a total pedophile.
you heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. If you see him hanging out by the junior high, call 911.
Just in the mustache?
Oh, yeah.
I assume. Like, that's...
Well, Ron Trout's coming back. I love how I talk about Ron Trout just like he's a whole different person, but he's technically me.
Right.
But
for sure.
coming up here in April, they got the Bumpin' Uglies coming to the Tiffin Brewery, and I got asked if Ron Trout would be an MC and do some Ron Trout bingo.
Oh
and
man,
like,
I have some amazing photos of you like fronting a rock band.
Oh yeah.
Over there at the
oh
brewery.
yes, that was.
So you're just like
yeah,
like sunglasses, just long hair in your face.
Yeah. Pretty much anything I can't do, Ron Trout can do with a mustache and nice hair.
Right? Yeah. It's nice to have that, you know, sometimes, and it's nice to like put it away. You know, like it's weird. It's like it's so great to be every person. You know?
Yeah.
Like, and that's a weird thing. Like, if you're like, people do it all the time, like novel writing or something.
Yeah.
Like, if you write a novel, you have to write every character in that whole book.
Yeah.
You know?
So you pretty much have to be that character mindset to be able to write that.
Yeah.
You know?
And like, what question, like, who am I right now, and what questions would I ask in this situation?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Really, it just comes down to having fun. Like,
Right,
I know a lot of people our age that can't have fun because they're too scared to have fun. Like, you know, people see Ron Trout and they're like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, why does he get to have fun? And then you'll get shrugs because people know inside themselves that they can't have fun.
Right.
So to find yourself, like, cutting loose into something that is, you know, mythical and an idea is like so awesome to me because it's like it opens up opportunities that you wouldn't necessarily get if you didn't, if you just, you know, keep your top button up, got my penny loafers on, you know.
But it is weird how we have to have like this excuse as of a character to do that sometimes too. I mean,
and
it's
then people
not weird,
think they're grown up too. Like, where did you become so grown up that like the best times in our lives is when we're a kid and we don't care necessarily what somebody's thinking, but you know, more how we feel and like our interpretation of what's going on.
And there's definitely like a certain amount of momentum too, I think. Yeah. From the time that you are young, that like you can put away your youth, and like, and it gets old and unused, and like you can pick it up, but it's gonna be where it was when you put it away. Yeah. You know, as with any kind of form of what you enjoy, you know, doing, I guess, right? Yeah. Like if you're just like, the idea came to me from a Clutch song, which is weird. Like where he's just like, once they kill your rock and roll, you can never get it back, is what he said. And I'm just like, oh wow, you know.
Yeah, better like, hold on to that.
Yeah. Neil Fallon, once you kill your rock and roll. like like listening to that preacher, I'm like, okay, yeah, I dig it, you know.
There's an innocence like when we're a kid, like where everything's possible. Yeah. But then even when you're in high school and the people that are supposed to like show you the way, like teachers and, you know, other adults, they want to shoot you down because they didn't get to live their dream. Yeah. So like, why am I going to up your crazy imagination when you need to go to a factory or need that 9 to 5 or whatever, where it's not necessarily what you need to do. And I always found that a struggle. Like I failed the first grade. I failed first grade. And it's because my imagination wasn't inside their textbooks. So they wanted to hold me back because it didn't fit with what they needed to move on. And I'm just thankful I never really gave a fuck and kept kind of going with it.
And that's an idea I've been thinking about lately too. Like, do we need mass manufacturing? Do we need factory jobs at all? Like, can we sustain ourselves with just like cottage industries in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could go to a factory and build a chair every day or something, right?
Yeah.
But then like I could just build chairs at my house.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think
Would
now
be
more
way
than
cooler.
ever, people are realizing that because
Yeah.
the cost of, these factories shipping out to a different country when there's
Yeah.
a lot of people with hands and ideas that can make this happen.
Yeah.
Plus all the tools we have. Like, for instance, you're
Yeah.
showing me all these apps on your cell phone of
Yeah.
synthesizers.
Yeah.
It's like, well, once before you needed to actually go spend a few $1,000s to get
Yeah.
that experience. And
And now I just like download it for free as an
Yeah.
emulation, and it's doing the exact same thing.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? Yeah. We're at a weird, interesting transition period.
yeah, it's
know?
totally a revolution happening,
Yeah.
especially with our youth. Like, what they're
Yeah.
exposed to now, they're so far advanced from what
Yeah.
we were
Yeah, for sure.
when we were younger.
Having like a Game Boy in your hands is way different than having
changing
a,
the cartridge. Like,
Right, yeah,
you don't
for
even
sure.
have to do that now. It's like,
yeah.
no waiting.
Uh-uh.
No waiting for, like, that loading. I don't
Yeah,
know.
like we used to turn our Game Boys off too.
Yeah.
Like there was like an off button.
Then it said powering off. Or
Yeah,
something
it
like
would
it.
just go boom, and you're like, okay, cool, I'll put it down now.
Yeah.
Whereas there's no off button anymore. It's
Yeah.
just like you put it, but it's still on like sleep mode or whatever. It's like it's always right there waiting.
Oh, yeah.
In a way too. And
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the future has to hold. Even with the whole crisis that happened, I think
Yeah.
it's pushing a lot more people into finding their own niche and their own business. And,
yeah, for sure.
the whole internet opening up to anybody's an entrepreneur now. Like,
Yes.
I mean, you don't need a brick and mortar place. Brick and mortar is like a thing of the past.
Yeah.
If you
in
want
a
to,
lot of
like,
ways.
connect with the world, you get on the internet.
It's still here. It still has to be here.
Yeah.
The box stores, the shipping companies, and all of that. That's just kind of how people operate. You
Yeah.
know? But like going back on the whole cottage thing, like even just like making like these guys.
Oh,
are,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know.
You can't go buy that at a big box store.
No.
So, like,
you
I
can't
see
order
that's
it on Amazon.
That's
you know?
where the business does thrive here because it's
Yeah.
the stuff that you can't just go buy. Even like during Valentine's Day, I did all
Right.
these little glass hearts as pendants.
Yeah.
And like being able to do that is huge because people
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to go buy their loved one the same teddy bear from the big box store
Because
that
it doesn't mean anything.
yeah, it just
you
ends
know?
up getting thrown out, and it's it was made in China or somewhere where
Yeah.
like we have no connection to it at all.
It's like some kind of machine put this together. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. You
But
know,
it says
like-
I love you.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, just in the past year of the whole pandemic,
yeah.
business has been up doing what I'm doing because
Mm-hmm.
people are tired of going to the big box stores. You know,
Yeah,
when they lock everything
sure.
down, but left the big box stores open,
Yeah.
it limited what we could buy. Like,
Yeah.
and then we're giving all of our chips to one person, and it's,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see a lot of brick and mortar places go out of business on the more like small box end, like
Right.
GameStop or something like that.
Right.
But I
right.
see that we're gonna thrive more in studios and
Mm-hmm.
what people can offer by themselves.
Just all of the open platforms, all of the open source, like everything that we're doing, as far even like open source AI, the GPT-3 general purpose transformer.
Oh, yeah.
AI that can like read legal documents for you.
Yeah.
Dude, like blowing my mind over here. Like I'm so happy that exists now.
Yeah,
It's
because
like, why
there's a
didn't
lot
we-
of stuff that
But why
probably-
didn't we always write it in regular form, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like
what
just
happened there?
yeah.
Somebody made it too damn complicated.
Yeah. Like we live in a world where the law is like, well, the law is there, but it's like kind of like dictated on like what our past decisions were.
Oh, yeah.
And then how expensive your lawyer is to find those past decisions.
Oh,
to
man.
weave your own story of how the law exists for you.
Now you can just
And
Google
it's like,
it.
God, like it's not a solid thing, you
No.
know?
No.
And I think people are realizing a lot of things like that now. I mean, it served the purpose. I mean, even money is not really a solid thing, you know.
No,
It's just an exchange. It's like an exchange medium, you know.
Yep.
That like it helps, you know, that kind of to facilitate that, you know.
Which anything can be considered like, you
Yeah.
know, as long as the other person finds value in it.
Yeah.
And you're on a mutual like understanding of what the value is,
Right.
then it can be accepted as currency.
And that's where valuation comes in, and you're like, okay, so this much work energy that I have is equal to this much value.
Oh yeah.
Right? And it's like we all have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Everybody does. So really, like, you can't have people like you could have people like, well, this guy's work energy is worth this much more, or you know, like,
Yeah.
or maybe, you know, this guy's maybe worth this much because he's really not trying, you know, or whatever it is, you know. But they're all working for 24 hours, you know, and so, but now we live in a world where it's like, well, this guy every 24 hours he makes this much now, and it's like, okay, well, is he really worth that much? You know, like, can he even spend that? Yeah, like. You won, dude. Just like if you make that much in a day, you're the winner, and you can go home now.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, yeah, it's just crazy what the top billionaires and trillionaires of this world have compared to everyone else.
Yeah. Like,
and there's no, I don't think we're ever gonna be able to balance that out again. Like,
no.
It's almost like here's the king, and we're all the pheasants or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Why? Like, if you're Bezos. Like, you make your first billion, like, boom. You're like, okay, cool. I'm going to retire, and I'm going to make Amazon open source.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let, like, everyone on GitHub run it.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, it's done. You know,
I really
that's
enjoy
how you do that.
seeing, like, employees-owned businesces. Because that's,
for sure.
I feel like more businesses should do that, because if you show your, what's the word I'm looking for? Shit, what's that? You work for me. You're my.
It's a cooperative, is what it's called.
But it gives more pride in their work too, and then also like the turnaround's huge, and there's no reason one asshole should sit on all the coins while the other person's struggling to make their rent or pay their bills.
Exactly, and you have literally jobs that are harder. You know, within the company. And, you know, but if you have everyone being an owner of that company, they all get to vote on what the ratio between wages are.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that's a hard job for anybody. And this is what they get, you know. Doesn't matter who it is, you know. Like, any of us could rise to that spot if need be or whatever. But, like, we're all making $64,000 a year.
Yeah.
Rad. Cool.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that seems like standard average. One time I took the GDP of America and like divided it by the entire country.
Oh yeah. There we go.
And found out that it was about 65,000 or so.
Oh
a year.
really?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for my check then.
I know, right?
God
I'm just
damn.
like, man, like I don't know. It's weird how everybody knows how hard they work. You know what I mean? But not all of that work can be valued monetarily, you know? But without those people, the place would fall apart. Like, literally. Like, there are so many people volunteering, doing, like, putting in work energy into the world around them every day. And it's like, why isn't that being compensated for? You know what I mean? Like, that is valuable. That is, like, the glue in our society, you know? And then you have other things that are worth more than anything on the entire planet, like a plant that produces oxygen that we breathe, you know? And that's not worth any more than the paper that we sell it as, you know?
They're all working the 24-hour schedule too.
Yeah. And it's like, everything's upside down and backwards. You got like the stock market running off of high frequency stock trades done by algorithms at like, they said that every 400 microseconds, there are 240,000 transactions happening on Wall Street.
Oh, wow.
So every time you blink your eye, blink, 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 240,000. Like, millions and millions are happening through
Yeah.
like this next minute, you know?
My recommendation to people is stay out of the stock market and
Yeah.
invest in yourself, because the
Yeah.
return's going to be that much better than,
Yeah.
just playing roulette and trying to, multiply your money or whatever.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Especially like right now, it just seems like everybody's an expert on Wall Street.
I know.
Since the whole GameStop thing, and
Yeah.
everybody's like dumping their money into cryptocurrency or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not my cup of tea, and I'd rather see the return be more.
Now, I do mine crypto
Yeah.
with my, my computer.
Oh, not like
which,
a tick.
Not
Got your sleuth.
sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. You gotta know the land.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like I make $5 a day with my graphics card in my. You know.
Cool.
Yeah, so just like, and then I haven't gotten the card, but I'm getting a little debit card and just gonna put some on there every once in a while and spend it that way just for extra. But like, yeah, I think that if historically speaking, this same type of mentality happened in the last roaring 20s era, right? Like, and obviously, like, maybe it doesn't work on a 100-year cycle, but like it seems to be. If I was going to make the correlation, which I am.
Yeah,
like,
go ahead.
You have this whole like mentality of like in the 1920s, like it was like the first time anyone like gave out loans, bought stock on margin. They called it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know a lot about stock market, but I do know that's what that's called. And like they did it like crazy. Like everyone's just like, hey, stock market's free money. Like, if you're not buying stock right now, you're dumb.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the exact same thing is happening right now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that a few years ago, really.
Yeah.
Like, the market crashed in 2008.
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, okay, like, where's everything at? How trustworthy is it?
Oh, yeah.
And then 12 years later, it crashes again. And then we like rewrite the laws so that the Federal Reserve can like give money directly to corporations. And like, now it's all like, can it fail? And like, what does it mean for society if society is completely disconnected from Wall Street?
Yeah.
So it's like, we're at this weird like imbalance, I feel like, happening where people are just, the high frequency trading thing does give liquidity to the companies that are on the market. They have cash at hand.
Oh, yeah.
All the time now. Because of these computers.
Yeah.
Like, which is good, I guess. Like that keeps it afloat. But like, I wrote an essay the other day about this, which is why I'm like, all these facts are in my head about it, right? And like basically. The idea is like in 2008, we bailed out all the banks and Wall Street and all that, right? With like almost $1 trillion back then. And that money, and that was like, we didn't just do the one-time thing. We kept giving them loans since then. I think we still do. Where it's just like 0% interest. They take that money, billions of dollars, throw it on the market, make their other billions of dollars, and then they pay it back, right? But nobody else is allowed to do that, and technically that's our money that we're like loaning them interest free for some reason. Like, I don't understand.
It is wild because when you say interest free and then you talk about like a new high school graduate going to college, and they're getting they have the interest on their debt to better themselves. Why are we charging an interest on student loans? That blows my fucking mind.
Like these kids, they're 18 years old, they're making like the biggest decision in their life,
and they don't fully comprehend what that payment looks like when you're done with school and then you're getting a job for $30,000-$40,000 a year.
They know better now just because it's a big topic at hand,
a lot of people had to go through it.
But they purposely screwed over an entire generation of people.
Oh yeah
Just because, I guess.
I did see a funny post the other day, like where it said like, back in the 50s, you could work at a shoe store and own a house and have a car and like all this stuff. But if you were to do that today, you can, it's just the cost of rent is so expensive. that it doesn't make sense. Like, if you did work full time at a job that paid you minimum wage,
Yeah.
you need to live with like 12 other families to be able to afford just putting a roof over your head.
Because realistically, minimum wage is between $24 and $27 an hour.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was, you know, back in the day if you adjust for inflation. You know, where people could like actually put money in the bank and save it.
Yeah, that's like,
you know, like that's all we're asking
it's
for.
wild. Yeah. It's just a wild time.
Yeah. I read the other day that the average household is losing $1,000 a month just normally.
Wow.
You know, like based off of how much rent, car insurance, and the whole deal cost, and then how much the average paycheck is.
Yep.
That was a wild statistic that kind of hit me broadside the other day. And I was like, damn, like that has to like come to a wall at some point.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, and that's what's scary, because that means that like society starts devolving in a way, you know, and then you have people getting desperate, and then you have, you know,
I feel like in the past year, the less you work, the more you make.
Right.
And that's really discouraging from, like, I never got any bailouts or, you know, relief for the whole pandemic.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, working my nuts off and then watching somebody just collect checks.
Right.
It sucks. Like, it
yeah.
doesn't feel right. Like,
no.
And, you know, something has to change. And I don't know.
Yeah, we live in bizarro upside down world.
Yeah.
You know?
The more kids you have and the less amount of shit you do, you're gonna benefit more. Like, and that's like they keep writing the laws to make it like that.
Yeah.
So eventually, in my mind, it's like, well, fuck, nobody wants to work. Let's just
and again, those laws are, you know, kind of moldable at best.
Yeah.
Like. It's like, God, like, can we just find a lawyer to, like, stand up for us somewhere? Where's Harvey Dent in this Batman episode, right? Like, he's Two-Face now, apparently. I don't know.
Oh,
like,
man.
The transformation has already occurred.
I did learn this the other day. This is totally off subject. I watched the TV series called Cosmos, and they talk about space.
The Carl Sagan one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that was rad.
So they talk about Challenger, the satellite we sent out, and it's traveling at like 34,000 miles an hour right now.
Yeah.
For us to get to the closest star in our galaxy, going at 34,000 miles an hour would take us 70,000 years to get to that star.
Yeah.
And that fucking blew my mind. I was like, you know, whenever I can learn how small we are,
it helps.
It does, because it's like, what the fuck is going on? And we're all worried about, like,
even just going up in an airplane one day, like, and then, like, I had been for years just going back and forth between Norwalk and Cleveland and Kent and Akron and just in this area. And, like, and then I just flew up in an airplane, looked down, and saw that spot, and it's only that big. And I'm like,
damn.
I've just been going around in circles my entire life.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Like, like, you see it from that, like, 10,000 feet. Let alone, like, thinking about, like, there's people that don't know that, you know, the sun isn't a planet or whatever.
Oh,
or that the stars, like, they think the stars are other planets, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, those are all, you know, localized things like what we have here. And there's like that many of them. And there's billions more that we can't see.
Yeah, it's way above our comprehension of life. Like, we can imagine like 100 yards or a mile, 200 miles. But when you get into light years, our brains are too small to even understand it.
Yeah. And, like, it took Einstein to really, like, lay it down, you know? And be like, if you travel at that speed, you will, and you come back to Earth, you will be young, and we'll all be old.
Yeah.
You know,
just like that star that's 70,000 years from now, that star could be dead by the time we get there. All we're doing is seeing, like, the light that it shined at us.
I mean, we're
traveling. Like, it's it's such a wild thing to think about.
We live in such a crazy loop that we can't even barely figure out like daylight savings time half the time, right? Like,
yeah.
let alone like light speed time.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like it's like, wait a minute, I get young, I get old. It's like, wait a minute, okay, so the sun's gonna be out later tonight or not?
I'm losing an hour.
Yeah, or I'm gaining an hour.
All right.
So that means that it's gonna be lighter.
Yeah.
When it was 4.
Yeah, I still don't understand the whole daylight savings time. I think maybe that's something that should have went out a long time ago.
Yeah, like,
Maybe with government cheese.
right, right, yeah. Like, we got rid of the gold standard and the dollar at some point.
Yeah, like why through the most depressing time of the year, through the winter months, do we want it to be darker?
Yeah.
Instead of lighter out.
Yeah.
You know, I would enjoy that extra hour of light instead of being dark at 4:30. Like,
yeah, it's like, why don't we just, why do we have this, like, why do we adhere so hard to the numbers on the dial, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is, like, such a, like, a feeling. It's like, well, it's already 7 o'clock, you know? Like,
Yeah.
in my brain, that means something that's just, like, my entire life that's built up to it has been built around this clock, meaning something at 7 o'clock or 5.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what does noon mean? Oh, I got to eat or
Yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah,
like,
yeah.
A couple years ago, I switched to military time just to kind of mess with myself.
I noticed that on your phone.
Yeah.
Kind of fucked with me too.
Yeah, right? Like, after, I mean, I'm a couple years deep now, and
Uh-oh.
like, but like, what's nice is that like, well, the friend that told me about it, she said that like it's a nice way to kind of dial your time, so you know how much time you have left in the day, instead of just like thinking about it as like 9 or 10 o'clock. You're like, okay, it's like, you know, 21, 22 hours. You know, compared to 24, that's only just a couple hours left in the day.
Yeah.
You know, depending on what your schedule is. I'm usually up till 5 in the morning or whatever. Yeah.
I'm an early bird. I wake up early. I go to bed early.
Yeah.
Really, ever since I got this place, I had to change.
Yeah.
My most creative time is when I wake up until
Yeah.
say noon.
Nice.
And I don't know how that happened because it used to always be later.
Yeah.
Like when I was working out of my garage, it would be like more of when the sun went down and doing all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's just like, however your routine settles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when this pandemic thing, like, I never used to stay up till 5 in the morning, you know? But now I just, like, have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, at least, like, you know,
So you're going to bed and I'm waking up.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning is usually when I'm hitting.
So have you found it easier being a musician to turn on and off your creative switch?
During this time period, are you
During,
saying? Or?
you know, just your evolution of who you are.
Oh, right now, I would say yes, because, and it hasn't always been like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've gone through periods for sure, you know, and a lot of those in the back of my mind, I kind of knew were like kind of test phases for me. Like, I played a lot of rock and roll, and then I kind of hated punk music because I couldn't like hear my lyrics or I couldn't hear the distinct guitar lines I was playing.
Oh yeah.
You know, so then I quit that band and started my own band, and then it was still like fuzzy, but I had more control over it because it was my band, right? And then that broke up, and then I joined these drum circles, and then I joined bluegrass and old-timey bands, and then like it's just like I kept going through phases. And it wasn't even really it didn't feel like it was by choice in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, oh, this is the group of musicians I'm around now. So and like, I like these people. Like, I want to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of what it's been for a long time, you know? Now, I feel like I'm just kind of off in my own world. Like, I went through, like, all of those phases, like, and then I hit the Grandpa BB phase after the old-timey phase. And then I and then I went into piano and storytelling, which I was like, still pertains to the Grandpa BB idea, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then I kept trying to make that like second, the follow-up to Hot Boats. I never really felt like I did it, you know, until like I made the band Gruff the Buzzer. And then that was just a great kind of awakening. Like the three of us just like clicked so well, you know, that like that band became like its own entity, you know. And then I was like, okay, this is fresh again. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm doing the follow up to Hot Boats, but then this is like the first album for this band. So in that way, I could spin it as like a unique artifact, you know. It has to be a unique artifact in some fashion for me, you know, in order for me to be creative on it, I think, you know. Because otherwise, I'm just doing the same thing over and over. It gets stale. And I'm just like, and I'm bored, you know. And like, and then that'll cause me to overplay sometimes, and then it'll cause me to rewrite things that have already been written. Like I don't need to do that anymore. And I've ruined bands because of that before.
Oh shit.
Because like you're like, you come in and like, okay, today we're gonna play the song like this, and they're like, dude, like I've already played this song 5 ways, and then like they're frustrated. And also, like, and then I kind of, like, don't know if they're going to play the old version of the song or the new version of the song.
Oh.
So then, like, you know, we're at the change, and I'm like, and everyone's, like, looking at each other like, we don't know what we're doing, you know? And then the band's broken.
So do you find it easier as a solo musician or being in a group?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely easier as solo.
Because it's your way or the highway. Like,
right,
you know,
there is no other, ideas. I mean, that's good and bad because you don't have that same type of collaboration.
Yeah.
But I do break my mind now more into pieces where I almost have collaborations with... Because, like, I've gone... like directly in lines with like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to play drums now, and like, but then there's been years where I just sit down and play whatever I wanted, you know, never in a band with playing drums ever, so I never had any real like grounding on it, you know. So I have my own kind of thing that I like to do that I kind of fall back on, or like I used to more. Now I kind of know more what I'm doing, I guess, but like that's like it once your playing has a built-in character to it, you know, after a given amount of time. And obviously, like, I've listened to music nonstop, and then, like, you're constantly studying, you know, what, like, whatever you're learning at the time is also what you're studying, you know. So for years, I would study lyrics and vocal delivery, you know, being a pizza delivery driver, just driving around singing whole albums, you know, to myself in the car. Mostly pizza songs.
Oh yeah,
pizza, pizza, pizza pie.
Oh yeah.
And then but it just grows. I mean, you have to like you take character from your favorites. You're just like, what's my favorite thing to do? I like to do this one the best.
Yeah.
You know, and that's your character. Yeah. You know. And then that same thing goes as far as like, there are favorite things I do on guitar now. There's favorite things I do on the keyboard and all the different things. And right now, like I'm like experimenting with drums and how like time signatures, and I'm experimenting with synths and sounds, you know, sound design, I guess, right? And so like that's what keeps it fresh for me right now, you know. And so collaboration can be a way to write, I think, and that's a really good one, you know. But if I'm also collaborating with myself, and myself inside of myself, I'm trying to learn something, you know, then that becomes my inspiration for the song almost, you know, and then that becomes more of the focus. And I'm like, okay, let's write a surf song like this because I want like that'll like make the drums real easy, and then you know I already know what the bass line's gonna be because you know whatever, but I want it to sound like this, and so you know whatever. And then you're just experimenting with your equipment and kind of like diving deeper into those worlds, you know. I don't know.
Yep, that guy's running. That's
college campus, right?
We all looked at him. He looked at us.
It's like, why do they have a light on themselves
Yeah,
inside
off
of a
camera,
shot?
there's a storefront
Yeah.
in front of us with a sidewalk, and like people that walk past like to look at us like we're animals in a zoo.
That's exactly what TikTok is, actually.
Oh yeah,
I call it the human zoo,
it is.
you know?
Everybody's showing off their little thing, or
Well,
like,
and
if
not
we-
even that, but like people are just like being themselves. And like,
yeah, and I like seeing that.
Yeah, yeah, it's really weirdly addictive.
Personally, my mom's like 60 some years old, and she's
Okay.
on TikTok.
Wow, that's wild.
And she loves making TikTok videos that she doesn't publish.
Yeah.
Like, she'll talk to her phone and be like, well, I had the sniffles today. And she'd be like,
Yeah.
like, and she's just having fun, like, you know,
Yeah.
being her own personality.
Yeah, for sure.
And, like, it's
for
cool
sure.
seeing, like, you know, people that you wouldn't even expect
Yeah.
being on TikTok
Yeah.
and, like, letting it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Because just being human is its own art form.
Yeah,
in a
it's
lot of ways.
interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting as shit. Like,
Yeah.
I get caught up watching, you know,
I
just
mean,
learning about different people. And
We go to
stuff, and-
zoos to look at animals just
Yeah.
for being themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, that's it's amazing. And like,
and so that's where it
humans-
comes to TikTok. It
Yeah.
is like the zoo for us. We're watching
humans are so
each
much
other.
more complicated.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, we make ourselves more complicated than we need to be.
Oh yeah.
And that's always interesting to watch too.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's not that complicated. Why can't you? Well, anyway, flip.
Oh yeah,
see,
yeah.
See what the next guy's saying, you know?
I think it's easier for us in this age than if you were, you know, a teenager now doing the whole TikTok thing, because
Yeah.
I know, like, my niece during her birthday,
Okay.
my brother's job was to film her blowing out her candles and
Yeah.
stuff. It was going to be for her TikTok she was
Oh,
making.
wow.
And my
Yeah.
brother forgot to hit record.
Oh,
And literally
no.
the whole planet melted down. Like, you know, there was wars going on, and like I ended up going over to give her a gift.
We're
and
at
she was
DEFCON
like
5.
she was in the worst mood, like, you know, her first boyfriend broke up with her or something,
Wow.
but it was all over not pressing record.
Wow.
And I had to make her realize, like, hey, you got your next birthday's coming up 1 year.
That'll
What are you
keep it fresh.
what
man.
are you
Yeah,
doing now
like,
to make sure, you know,
Yeah.
your dad doesn't mess up or
Yeah.
something, like, you know, like,
plan ahead, you know?
it's weird, like, especially interacting with, you know, a younger generation.
And-
Both of us we don't have kids, so like
Right,
when I
yeah.
see that stuff, it's like, man, like I remember, you know, being that age and
That's
not
yeah.
even worrying about TikTok or something like that. I was playing in dirt mounds still.
But that's
like,
still real, though. That's
Yeah.
still like a real like regret. You
Yeah,
know? Like
yeah.
that real like that type of regret that like sits on your chest. Like I was at a party, I should have said this,
yeah,
and I didn't.
Yeah.
You know. And then you're like, you just feel horrible, or you're really stoned, and you're thinking about it way too hard, and you're like, oh my god, the whole world's ending.
yeah,
you know?
yeah, oh yeah,
And that's just trying to cope with this idea of regret and being like, okay, like what I ended up telling myself at some point in my life, I was just like, okay, the things I'm regretting that I should have done are like now my new plans of action going forward.
yeah,
Because that's all I can do.
Yeah, yeah.
I just had the idea right now. like, like, this is still a valid idea.
Yep.
You know? And in the future, this is what I'll say. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Or this is what I'm going to do.
Plan for the future. That's
Yeah.
what you need to do.
That's what regrets
don't
are,
hold on
you know?
to the
Yeah.
what happened, or
Shoulda, woulda,
just
coulda.
because you shit
like,
yourself
yeah.
at the park and everybody watched you run with diarrhea coming down. It's a true story that happened to me. I'm not holding on to it, but some people like to point it out. So it was the early 92 probably. I was wearing my Jordans. I had the short shorts on, a neon top. And my brother was playing baseball at the local park. And, like, I ran up to a porta potty running off, like, the slide. I'm like, oh, man, I had too much applesauce. And so, like, I'm knocking on the porta potty door.
Mortified.
Yeah, porta potty door. I'm like, come on, dude, I gotta use this. He's like, it's gonna be a while. Big dude in there just, like, taking his time, taking a big dump.
Oh, God.
And I remember just panic mode, and I shit myself, and it blew out my little britches, and, like, I was running so fast that the shit was kicking up and, like, going over me.
Oh, no.
And, like, I was just screaming because I'm like, oh, my God, did this just happen in front of it? They stopped the baseball game.
Right.
Both sets of bleachers are all looking at me. my mom sees me from like 50 yards away, and she's like, "No!" And it's just like it always kind of stuck with me.
Billy Madison pops his head around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, you fucking penguin.
Full circle. Orange whip.
I just figured I'd throw that in there. Life's not perfect, and So from I make sure I got a good shit execution plan in case I have to shit myself.
Yeah, you learn a lot of like little over the years. Man.
Oh yeah.
It's and we're still young, dude. Like it's crazy. Like we're like at a point where it's like we know enough to kind of be comfortable with in our own skin.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
It's still like I still have moments where I'm like,
happens.
shit's yeah.
The last time I shit myself was at let's just change the subject here. So I was at an Indian reservation in upstate New York. This was probably about 11 years ago. Mm-hmm. Me and my wife ate at a little diner they had there. I was actually buying like tax or duty-free cigarettes where like you get a carton of cigarettes for like $10.
So duty-free.
Yeah. So we were eating at the restaurant. She's standing by the gumball machine. She's right next to this gumball machine because I can remember this like so clearly.
Yeah.
I pay the bill and I go up to her and I lift my leg to fart on her. And sure enough, I shit myself in upstate New York. Like Buffalo was probably like another hour away.
Okay.
And it fucking sucked, man.
Yeah,
like
right.
I had to go into this bathroom and like throw away my underwear. I'm 20-some years old, like way too old to be shitting myself. And
shit the bed Louise, man.
I remember like the Indian coming in, he's like gagging and stuff. He's just like, "Oh wow, what the fuck? Like, how old are you, dude?" And
all of a sudden there's a half-naked Indian.
So I had to actually drive to Buffalo and buy underwear. I was going fucking I was butt ass naked pretty much. Had some jeans on with commando. That's what I'm kind of going for. Went to a Kmart, grabbed a pack of underwear, went to their dressing room, put on the underwear, and then went out to pay for the underwear as they were like, the holes ripped in it. Somebody took out a pair and the lady had to ask like, there's a pair of underwear missing out of here. I'm like, yeah, I shit myself at the Indian reservation.
Square root 2.
Yeah.
It's not the pieces don't
But
fit,
to make
man.
a long story short, don't try and fart on people. Because like
not worth it.
No, it's not. I just wish I could have maybe left that story out of this interview. That's what happens when you get too comfortable.
I almost brought it out of that with the whole like live and learn thing,
Oh yeah.
I was like going in that direction. You're like, nope, I'm bringing it back.
Yep. Don't try and fart on your wife because you might shit on her.
Yup.
So that was
art forms, man. I don't know, life. It's weird.
So that tour we did, we took an old RV, 19 Saratoga is what we called her. Okay. I don't know if you remember that at all.
Yeah.
Because the name of the RV was Toga.
And like Saratoga.
Yeah,
Saratoga.
And we actually, do you remember when we were almost to Norwalk after everything's over, and I'm like, let's see if this bitch can do 100. And we went 100 miles an hour in a 1978 RV, man. Like that is like the wildest shit.
The craziest part was coming down those mountains in the Appalachians.
The death wobble. Remember we got the rotors heated up,
like the whole van, like those axles felt like they were just about to come out from underneath the van.
What about that tornado? It ripped the roof up a little bit. Remember we were going to Gettysburg?
Yeah.
And then there, like, you can physically see this tornado.
Like we were
out
completely
in the cornfield.
Storm chasers.
Yeah. And we were going on the highway. We were probably going 5 miles an hour to get the hell off the highway because there's a tornado coming right at us.
Yeah.
And I had the wheel turned all the way into the wind, and it was still trying to push us over. That was the scariest. That and then driving after we left Gettysburg.
Yeah.
That's when we took like that weird ass back road forever. Like the sun went down and here we are like doing the death wobble going down these hills and shit.
Yo.
Oh. That was a wild time. That's one of my most enjoyable trips right there. It was felt like we made a difference that week.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Definitely.
yeah.
That was a good time.
A lot of people seen that. It was like, I wish I knew a number of how many
in
people.
DC, like they're like, "Are you here for the parade?" We're like, "Yeah,
Oh yeah.
of course we are. What parade is that? Where's it at?"
We'll be there. Yeah, nobody gave us any shit either. It's such a weird statue to walk around with that, like, you think somebody'd be like,
right, yeah.
you know, like some controversy would have started.
In Philadelphia, I probably have asked you this several times, but the car that like hydraulicked over the...
You remember that? It was like a Mustang or something. Yeah. Like, they jumped a whole intersection.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I tell people that story, and I just wanted to collaborate.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's totally real.
Okay.
Because I've had to tell people this
the
story before, too. I'm like, you know that space where you see, like, the crosswalk to crosswalk. Yeah. The guy, like, must drive this path all the time, but he knew the little hump. And just, like, second gear, boom, and just, like, jumped it. Yeah. It was like Dukes of Hazzard shit.
Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah. The whole car was off the floor.
If you built a vehicle tire made out of completely Air Jordans, right? Like, and it's just, like, one of those old cartoon wheels, right?
Yeah. It was wild. And he hit it all during a yellow light.
And you have like an automatic pump it up button on your you pump up the Air Jordans and it just launches you.
I think Baltimore was pretty crazy seeing all those no shoot zones, and like we were really riding around through some rough areas in this RV, man. And
yeah, that was rough.
I'm just surprised nothing crazy happened to us.
Yeah, thank God. You're like, let's go in this back alley. Like, I'm like, fuck, dude, no. Like, I don't want to go back there. This is not where we need to be.
Then Pittsburgh, that guy that told us we weren't allowed to stand on the sidewalk. Remember the parking lot guy?
Yeah.
That guy.
And then we just had this, like, giant syringe dude. Like...
Yeah, and I pulled down my pants and mooned him and shit. Like, as BB took this big fake syringe and acted like he was shooting me up. But he had nothing to say about that. But as we were on the sidewalk, he's like, hey, you can't do that. People pay for this sidewalk. But in the alley, you're all right if you go shoot up in an alley. Not that we're doing drugs, but, you know, the whole thing was a heroin awareness.
And then the UFO in Mars.
Oh, yeah, that was...
PA, and then Hershey, Pennsylvania stole all the rocks.
I still have those rocks.
Me too.
I gave some to my mom. And
I gave some away as gifts too.
They were interesting rocks.
They were really
and that's
cool.
Where, like, you know, you get so much from traveling because it's like, oh, this rock. And it was a cool rock. Like, it had quartz with something else, like,
it could have been limestone or something.
Almost looked like a zebra.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Where those people thought it was so normal they could fill, like, their empty spots in parking lots to decorate it.
Yeah,
and then us in Ohio, we're like, oh, gold!
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, and then those people, we went to the wrong place. We thought we were going to the amusement park or whatever, and we went to the headquarters, and we walk in, and they're like, what are you here for?
You're not supposed to be here.
Yeah. Here's a complimentary peanut butter cup.
Here's a miniature.
Yeah.
One.
Get out of here.
One.
Yeah, that shit was crazy.
We're in Hershey. We want chocolate. Come on.
I remember waking up at a truck stop one of the days.
That was...
BB was still sleeping. I went into the truck stop to take a dump.
You were mortified, man.
And as I was in there, I kept hearing somebody gagging. I'm like...
Oh, yeah.
What the fuck?
I completely blocked this out of my memory, too.
I
didn't even see it.
I thought it was going to be like somebody overdosing on heroin in this bathroom because it seemed fitting because we were on a heroin awareness tour. Like, you know, that's something.
It was on the mind.
So, like, when I come out thinking that I was going to have to help somebody, the guy at the sink looks at me and then he goes right back to brushing his teeth. And he wasn't brushing his teeth. He was brushing his throat going, And I was so fucked up after that. Like, I had to go sit and just chain smoke cigarettes until BB woke up. And
I came out of the camper and you were just, like, bewildered.
I can still picture this guy looking at me, swallowing his toothbrush. And it's like, what the fuck? That guy.
I was like, I'm going to have to be a therapist for the next 100 miles, I guess.
I still don't know what the guy was doing. I assume he was on drugs. And he was like... He didn't even know what he was doing.
Yeah, right. Man.
Then meeting Randy at Randyland.
Yeah,
was,
Randyland.
That was pretty damn cool.
And the art gallery right before that. That was
really
rad, too.
Yeah.
Like it was like an experimental art gallery.
We left the RV door open at Randyland, and his cat. We almost drove off with Randy's cat because he just like made his home up on the top bunk.
And like everyone who visited Randyland was instantly friends, and we were all just like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah, it's like we walked into a world of just like, "Hey."
Like he invented this like safe space for human interaction or something.
Yeah.
You know? Like that's kind of, I guess that's kind of what art is too in a lot of ways. You know, like how do you build space?
Yeah.
You know, and what is a space for? Like you have like an intention for this space, like, and if your intention is for people to sit around and talk to each other and be cool, like how do you build that? And how do you how do you take down people's defense mechanisms?
Yeah,
so they're not so like, because how do you trust somebody?
I actually seen a video of Randy before he did Randyland. He still lived in that neighborhood and owned that building, but it was before he like transformed it.
Okay.
And Pittsburgh News did a story on him about how he was putting flower beds in everybody's windows.
Whoa.
And this was like
guerrilla tactics.
Yeah.
Like, just randomly.
And it was like it changed the neighborhood from that point because you know, like there was trash and stuff, but then there was Randy going around like, you know, let's put flowers everywhere. And
that's so cool.
That's why that is the whole art district there.
Wow.
Like he changed it. He definitely physically changed it just by putting like little window, you know, flower beds in people's...
And like, it's like one person has so much power that they have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, I can buy 15 cents worth of seeds.
Yep.
And, like, completely change a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
And he had all neighbors doing it, like, that never had any experience in gardening, never even thought it was possible to have flowers.
Yeah.
And then got the kids even understanding what the importance of it was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like people were just ruining stuff. They were taking pride in their neighborhood.
We're so disconnected from that world, too, on so many levels. But we're also, like, we've grown up. Like, evolutionarily, the human species has been symbiotically linked, like, at the hip to plant life, basically, you know?
Oh, definitely.
Like, there's no, like, you can't have one without the other, you know? And now we, like, seclude ourselves from it. We, like, distance ourselves from all parts of it, you know? To where it's, like, weird to be out there, you know?
I can imagine it's worse when living in a big city where it is just like
no
pavement
green
and concrete everywhere.
Yeah. I love just taking walks around, you know, small town Norwalk, you know, and like I live exactly 1 mile from where I work, and, you know, I just walk back and forth. Not all the time, but like, you know, usually late at night, and like I see like all the trees and like you can for a long time I would just walk and like look at all the houses, you know, but now it's like all I do is look at the trees, and it's like I'd never seen them before.
Hell,
you know?
yeah.
It's like they didn't exist, and then all of a sudden there's these giants here, you know. There was I don't know, you can't see what you've never seen before in a lot of ways.
Sometimes it's hard to see what's right in front of you.
Yes I was even just driving on the way here, like there was like a van that was like backing into his driveway on the road, and like it was at a distance. I'm like, all right, there's a vehicle and there's some lights, and I don't know if it's coming at me or...
First thought would be UFO, right?
Yeah, there's some aliens flying this thing.
Yeah.
Dive bombing somewhere. Yeah, dude. Yeah, but then like once it backed in and I could see the profile, I'm like, okay, I know what that is now. And then 2 seconds ago, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what that was. You know.
It's a wild world.
Yeah, and like how we how our brains self-assemble themselves as babies, and then we just absorb everything. You know. Like, things that we think that are true when we're a kid are completely not true.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like we've been lied to.
Well, that too. But, I mean, I'm talking about as a kid, like, just, like, at the level of, like, when I first started to see past my own nose in a lot of ways, other
Uh-huh.
than just things being blurry. Like when I started doing that as a child, like things became very symbolic to me. You know,
Mhm.
like signs had words on them, but they were all in these shapes and like neon and colors and three-dimensional whatever, and they just became symbols of that's what's there in this town, you know. And that's it didn't mean anything, like it meant something to me. But then like what was really weird was that like our family moved away from that town during that time period, and then for like 4 years, and then we moved back to that same town 4 years later. I was like completely blown away by
Mhm.
like these signs and these symbols. I'm like, these are words, and this was no way was this connected to like what my memories thought that it was.
Mhm.
You know, it was like one of the weirdest realizations of like language, I guess, and how like just in a matter of 4 years time, like your entire perspective on the world shifts,
Oh yeah.
you know, to like an understanding of like what other people are trying to do,
Mhm.
compared to like what's like just symbolically like the shapes and forms in the world. You know, like abstractly, you know.
Yeah.
That was one thing I wanted to ask you about too, was just like abstraction versus um, trying to go for something specifically, I guess, you know, like
Mm.
um, and I think we hit on it a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
from the angle of like commercial versus, you know, what I want to do, you
Yeah.
know. But I think that there's definitely something to be said in like I know like musically I'll just sometimes I'll just make up songs and record a bunch of stuff that just does not go together on purpose, you know.
Mhm.
Almost maybe just to find the spots where they do go together.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know?
It's an experiment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, sometimes I know exactly what the song's gonna do.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I'm just like, okay, this goes here, and then
You got your formula.
yeah, yeah, and then like later in the day, I come up with another riff, and I'm like, okay, how can I transition that? And it does this,
Mhm.
and you know, and it's, you know, very straightforward, and
Yeah.
like it's like gonna grab you, and it's designed to, you
Yeah.
know. But like, I mean, there was a piece a few weeks before that I did that I was like, okay, I'm just gonna play these chords and just keep ascending, and then see what happens, you know.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and it's just gonna keep going up. It's like to where I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do
Yeah.
after that point, but I'm gonna try it. You know.
Yeah, I think the evolution of me becoming an artist was
Mhm.
like when you stare at a blank wall and you can't think of anything because you're
Right.
staring at the blank wall so much that you're like, oh, I need an idea, I need an idea,
Yeah.
I need an idea, and like to let that go.
Like writer's block.
Yeah,
What
like
they
I don't
say.
get writer's block
me
because
neither.
I've
Yeah.
trained
Like,
myself.
yeah.
Like, but in the earlier stages, yeah,
Yeah.
I
yeah,
totally could.
for sure.
But it's from like I was asking, like, do you just flip on and flip off the switch?
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
what I mean. Like when I wake up, I flip it on because I know here's my hours that I'm gonna go get creative. Then I flip
Yeah.
it off, like gotta go have lunch or something. I mean, it's still in my brain, but I'm
Yeah.
not producing.
Exactly.
So like it's a constant thought.
Mhm.
But like when I click it on and off of being productive is like the thing that has taken me years to train for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like,
for sure.
Because you can't just produce stuff 24 hours a day. Like you need
Yeah.
to
Writer's block.
shut it off and
Writer's block exists in the world where you will try.
yeah,
Right?
Exactly.
You're really trying, and you don't know what you're trying
like
to
you're
do.
trying for the next great thing.
Yeah.
But that's not how it happens.
No.
Like not at all.
Like, yeah, you're like, all right, I'm going to write the best song I've ever written right now.
Yeah.
How do I do it? You know, and then you're just blank. And then
Yeah.
that is the best song ever written.
Yep.
Nothing. There's no sound. Silence. The sound of silence, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of like
Nothing is everything at that point, you know? It's like it goes so far in one direction that it just blanks out.
Oh yeah, then you start getting pissed at yourself or something. It's like, why can't I think?
Yeah,
And then the more pressure you put on yourself to perform or a certain way
right.
is where you run into that wall again.
So if everything's like a circle, like think about like exponential graph, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have this like graph, I've always thought about like people talk about it's like, well, we're going along this technological thing, and then we go straight through the roof and we become robots.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And then but it's like you have this thing, and that's how evolution I think works. I mean, evolution works very slowly in a long line, right? And then it goes up, like in some manner of aspect. But like, is it doing that, or is it just coming back down from some other graph that we don't know about?
Damn.
Right? And then like all the graphs, and then so when we go up exponentially to infinity, right? Where does infinity go? It comes back around.
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like in my mind, that's how it works.
Heck
you know? And like I don't know, I was trying to study calculus, and like they have all those graphs that like you have like these,
Yeah.
you know, and like each one of those arrows goes to infinity, and I'm just like, well, it could, or maybe it's just like two lines on a sphere somewhere, you know. That makes so much more sense to me.
Oh yeah.
Like I believe in infinity as far as like consciousness, you know. As far as like the thoughts that I have, sometimes I don't know where they come from.
So if we think about space, is there an infinity, or is there a wall, or do we just come back around?
That's true too.
Kind of like the world, like are we all just circles
and
inside circles?
Yeah,
you know,
and that's where like in the best conversations come back around to the penguin. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
he knows everything.
You start I'm just saying, you start in one spot, and then you come back around again. Like we did earlier. And that's how the best comedians work. That's how the best songwriters are like, well, I did this part, and then I came back around and did it again. So it sounds familiar to them because they're like, oh, I know this thing from somewhere. It's familiar. Oh, yeah, it's from 5 seconds ago when I just heard it. You know what I mean? And like, but to the brain, it's familiar now because I heard it a second time.
Oh yeah. Now it's an original idea.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's like I like this more now for some reason.
So, is there such thing as an original idea? I've heard this question a lot, and it's like, well, you know, we're influenced by everything. Like, you know, you talking to me right now could spark the original idea, but it manifested,
and it is,
and the origins come from you,
right? Like,
so.
But
I guess it's your interpretation of what's going on that makes the original.
The entire, idea. You know, deep history of humanity up to now to make us exist, you know, is also in play. You know, it's like, okay, but then also like a star exploded once, and then you know, like created the element hydrogen and shit, or oxygen,
boron,
right? Yeah,
all
when
of the supernova.
Things
funny
that
thing
were
about
made
my
out
glass, it's made out of borosilica. So the silica part is the silica sand that's in all glass.
Yeah.
The boro part comes from boron, and boron was created when a supernova happened, when a star exploded.
Yeah,
and that littered our Earth, where we eventually ended up mining for boron. And so the origins of this glass is stardust. Yeah. That's wild. I was taught that a few years ago, and it's like, man, so my raw material is stardust.
And the reason that we knew to look for boron, I'm just speaking off top, but like the guy who invented the periodic table, Mendeleev, that guy was insane.
Yeah.
Like his whole story is amazing, by the way. But like he could predict elements that we had never found before.
Yeah.
With his periodic table.
Yeah.
That like to a closer, he was more right on the weight, the atomic weight of these elements than the people who discovered them.
Yeah.
Like they had them in his hand, and they're like, hey, Mendeleev, I found a new one. I'm calling it germanium because I love Germany and shit.
Oh, yeah.
And like, and it weighs this much. And he's like, no, you're wrong. It weighs this much. And he's like, well, you've never even seen it before. How would you know? He's like, well, I calculated it that it's going to weigh this much, you know?
And I just, like, literally the other night was watching about that because the Cosmos, if you watch the series about the Cosmos, they go through, like,
I love Carl
everything.
Sagan, man.
Ah.
Carl Sagan used to smoke so much weed. He was a huge advocate, like, politically, too. And, like, he wrote amazing, just like objective points of view, you know?
It's like the hippie in NASA.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why he could explain that stuff to normal people, I think, you know? He had that kind of like outside of like perspective thing happening, you know? Creative writer, creative, like he was an artist of astronomy in a lot of ways, you know? He was able to like present it in the form of a television show, you know? It's like a television show is like a very unique form of art and a very new one. You know, especially like in the 80s. You know, like nobody had done that on television before like that before. There had been like, you know, Professor Wild whatever, like is experimenting with vibrations today.
But not explaining it on a form where the normal person that's not a scientist can understand it.
Yeah, exactly. Where you can just talk.
Yeah.
And be like, I am walking across this grassy field right now, and these are the things that it's made of.
Instead of like replaying a Western, you know, like let's, you know, go back a generation.
Or being in a lab.
Because like if you think like in the 70s or whatever, like those people's like say you're 70 years old in 1970 or 1960 or whatever. Yeah. Your parents and grandparents were the Western people, so I understand why they're like reliving like the Western theme in a way.
Yeah.
And so probably the same thing here. Like, you know, they played the space stuff now. And then when we're like 80 some years old, we'll be still watching space and alien shit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Even
though like the aliens are like walking on the street, like we're still watching these classics of like, this is what it used to be.
Look, like remember Joe
E.T.?
the alien? Like, our neighbor
Elf.
Joe.
Remember Elf?
Yeah. It's such a weird art. Like, I don't know. Like, I love new mediums like that. You know, it's a storytelling, but it brings in music and it brings in visuals, and like we had no idea how to do it. And like, and then there's Rod Serling happens, and then there's, you know, all the talk shows and variety shows and westerns, and then sitcoms, and then they're like. And then that we realize sitcoms are like a reflection of our society, and what does that mean for society, you know? And like, and then our sitcoms evolve quickly.
Oh yeah,
so quickly. As far
it's just
as
wild how fast everything happened. Like 150 years ago, the Civil War happened.
Yeah.
So like, think about like the time we went from the Civil War to where we are now.
Yeah.
Holy fucking shit, man!
Yeah.
Like. To be a doctor back then, you only needed like 4 years, if that, of education, and you didn't even know shit. You were just cutting off people's limbs, and you were figuring it out as you went. Like and now we're like dialing in vaccines and stuff.
They just figured out what germs were at that point. Too.
Yeah,
you know, or at least accepted the idea.
Yeah,
like the guy who
like
actually,
what causes that infection from that arm that I just sawed off.
Yeah,
as he like wipes his scalpel under his like. Sleeve and then goes to the next guy.
Louis Pasteur was there when the last guy, and I can't even remember his name, but he went crazy in an insane asylum. But like he thought germs existed, and nobody believed him.
Nope.
And then Pasteur's like,
they're everywhere.
He's like, I think I can sell this to people though now.
Yeah.
They're like we're more used to this idea. Like it's so like, and that's another crazy thing about where we are now is like that where our tech is like trying to go farther than like our own evolution.
Yeah.
And that kind of leaves us behind. We have to like, in a way, tech has to go backwards towards us, you know, because we can't evolve that quickly.
No.
You know, like it's just not possible. Like we still... Like, I still, like, want to drink coffee or with a ton of sugar in it because that's, like, a reward mechanism in my head, you know? I get dopamine responses of that shit. It's like, or, I don't know, a myriad of other, like, weird idiosyncrasies. Like, oh, there's a sound, you know? It's like, okay. It's like, that's because I was on a savanna once 10,000 years ago. You know, and there's like, oh, there's another animal out here that it might be a snake, it might be a lion, it might be, but, you know, like it's beneficial for me to have that response.
Yeah.
Back then, you know.
Oh yeah.
Now we exploit that fact with like notifications in our phones.
Oh yeah.
And it's like
it's a conspiracy.
No, it's just straight fear.
Yeah.
And we're causing ourselves these weird, like, prolonged anxieties.
Oh yeah.
You know, that like never exist. Anxiety was always quick back in the day.
Yeah.
Like if you were afraid of a snake, it's like, boom, I'm afraid of a snake. Oh, the snake's not there. Cool. All right, let's just keep going.
Yeah. Now it's like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not saying there probably weren't paranoid people back then. I mean, they probably.
yeah.
It was probably. Yeah, I mean, it was. I don't know. I mean, it had to have been really
I don't know.
stressful.
If you were in the 1800s and you experienced anxiety and had no cure for it, like
I'm
what?
talking about like 1800 BC or
Oh,
like
shit.
you know what I mean? Like they still had society at that point, but like it was a world. It was a scary world.
Yeah.
Like I think about it sometimes as far as even like the way that we built cars as like pods, you know, to almost like protect ourselves from nature in a lot of ways, you know.
I'd like to meet the guy that first thought it was a cool idea to eat a bird egg. Because I bet he was like,
yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
you're going to eat that? Like, come
That's
on, dude,
gross,
look.
dude. Yeah, well, fire and frying pans had to
Yeah.
exist at that point. Yeah.
Look, over easy.
But you had scavenger primates.
Yeah.
Existed way before we knew how to use fire.
Just wild.
Yeah.
Especially to eat a raw egg and be
Yes.
like, ooh, I could do this.
Animals do that now.
Yeah.
Where they run up and steal eggs.
So I
and
guess
eat them.
we've really learned from the animals that were here before.
I mean, even in the
just
Rocky
watching.
movies, Sylvester Stallone.
I know.
You know what I
fucking
mean?
downs it.
Yeah. It's like
He doesn't even gag or anything.
people still do that for like protein and for like to build their built bodybuilding.
Do you not get the same protein if you cook the egg?
Maybe it's not as much.
Maybe
I
he was
don't
just
know.
in a hurry.
What do you have to do, man? You can't make an omelet. You know? Like, come on.
I gotta go work out. It'll cook in my stomach.
I've never like, and that's
Eggs are
different.
like the quickest thing to cook too. Like it's, why did he down them like that? And a shit ton. It wasn't just one egg and done.
Yeah.
He had a whole cup full of eggs. Yo, Adrian. Does my breath stink?
You could have been a contender, Mick.
Oh.
Come on, Rock.
Well, this was fun.
Gotta eat your eggs raw, Rock. Could have been a contender. Yeah.
Checking the time, seeing how long we've been doing this.
Yeah, I'd have.
1 hour, 1.5 hours.
Nice.
Good job.
Right?
I think we really cracked out a good session there.
Yeah.
The ball was rolling slow at first, but once we found
There was a couple hiccups in there, you know.
a lot of shit yourself stories and
which I might use to my advantage too.
Yeah.
Like in the editing process, like, cause like I'm already like I'm gonna put words on the screen and shit too of like what is happening right now, like, you know,
what
like
is he talking about?
that's the writer in me wanting to make captions, you know.
I wonder what the penguin thought of it.
Penguin's cool, man. That's the spirit animal from Fight Club, bro.
Oh wow.
Slide.
Yep.
That's I did like a improv like theater thing once about penguins being my spirit animal. And like went on like a whole tangent about like about that. I don't know. I don't remember what it was. That was like in high school, you know.
A few weeks ago I seen what a penguin's fur looks like, the feathers.
Yeah.
Like it was a skinned penguin.
Whoa.
Like in a museum. Like it must have been old as shit because I don't think you're just allowed to skin penguins now.
Right.
But
like some Eskimos.
the feathers were so dense that I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just fucking amazing. Like
bet.
it was
Yeah,
above any bird or anything. Like just the density and the complexity of these feathers working with them for them to be able to do what they do. Like,
wow.
It's really cool shit. And I think they were like bringing up like how to use that in technology now, because we always look at like animals and plants and understand their genetics to be like, oh, this is aerodynamic, or this is warm, what's resisting the weather from the penguin, and like,
why did this evolve this way?
Yeah.
Like,
and then they want to build a car that's like nice and furry and with feathers, more aerodynamic, that can just glide through the streets.
Yeah, and now you have like AI building material science type stuff.
Yeah.
Designing structures that like look like nature in a lot of ways, but only do that because like if you take into account the planet, like what works best on the planet, right? Like, well, we already figured that out.
Yeah.
Like nature did that for us a long time ago.
Nature's been doing it before we were here.
This has just been like a cauldron of experimentation and failures, and the only things that succeeded are the things that are still here. For those reasons.
Yeah, there has to be like a point where technology and nature collide to like make the ultimate materials or stuff that's not. Yeah, there's something we're gonna find out in the future that's gonna benefit us all, if it's a alternative fuel source or whatever it is, you know.
Aldous Huxley used to talk a lot about back in the 40s and 50s about like technology becoming like boxing us in a lot of ways, you know, and that it like kind of takes away from us in different aspects. Makes us like, essentially it makes us less human. You know, like, I mean, when you even if you're talking about domestication of, you know, cows or corn, right? Like that in essence makes us less what is pure human, right? Like you're talking like the largest period that we were ever alive, that we ever had language, was in a period between 500,000 years ago and 12,000 years ago, where pretty much the only invention we had was fire, right? And, you know, we wore skins and we invented languages and we told stories and made music, and we were nomads. You know, we didn't have permanent settlements anywhere. We moved with the crops. Like, it's like, well, this land is shot. It's not producing anymore. Or we're going to burn down this forest now, or whatever. I mean, I guess that was after the agricultural too. But, like, before that point. But that was...
I think a big thing is going to be those, like, the computerized greenhouses they got going on.
Oh, yeah, for
Instead of, like, ruining the nutrients in our soil, or, like, being able to have a full-blown farm right in New York that's giving New Yorkers the food they need, instead of bringing it from California to New York.
Urban agriculture.
It
needs to
wild.
happen.
And they're using like, I forget what the numbers were, but it's like 80 or 85% less water. Because like when you water these plants, it's going into the ground, going off into irrigation or whatever. But if they can control it like hydroponics, where like the amount of water that's lost isn't really lost. So instead of,
because you have a tray underneath it.
It's
and all a controlled system. And also,
and they said it's become really big because like lights, LEDs have become way more affordable.
That's true.
So now they're
just like pennies now.
From what I've heard, they're gonna start popping up this stuff, which is awesome, because maybe that will help, you know, preserve the water we need for drinking, or, you know, whatever else. And
I've been wanting to get into like microgreens, like you know, in a spare room or something too. My friends are doing that in Norwalk. They have little microgreens. They just have like 2 shelves, spaces with the LEDs. There's certain colors that work better than others.
And they can produce the food faster because it's more efficient, instead of losing so much into the ground that we're not benefiting from.
And also phosphorus is a huge concern, because we mine phosphorus from the ground. And there's only like a limited amount of it. And the way that we've been in putting it into the ground, it washes out by like 80% of it washes out. And then they're just finding... like Paul Stamets with the mushrooms, mushroom guy. genius.
I love that guy.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
he's
like,
fucking awesome.
I feel like you learn 5 things from every sentence that he says. You know.
Yeah, from what I heard from one of his interviews, he's the only guy to have a license to have like 146 different types of hallucinogen and mushrooms.
Right. Yeah.
To do
for sure.
studies on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy's badass.
Yeah.
And just how like we all evolved from the mushroom and like the
Yeah.
world's a mushroom and we're all just like an organism.
They're like the first like land creature or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was like, 2-story, 15-story high mushrooms.
Yeah, I
on the
love his
planet.
stories and like
Yeah.
just how like when he was younger, like right out of high school, he lived his whole life with a bad stutter.
Yeah.
And his
Oh,
first
okay.
mushroom trip actually
Like
took that away from him.
that's amazing.
Yeah, and he prayed to like the gods, and it was this thunderstorm, and like he was out in a field.
He has a lot of tripping stories. That
Yeah,
are pretty...
and like that one like took just like his mentality going into that first experience took away what was holding back like his whole childhood and everything.
That's amazing that he had the wherewithal
to
take his first trip and to actually use it
Yep.
for like a forward trajectory.
Yeah.
Like who has that awareness about themselves at that point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, he's a really smart individual.
Yeah, he's freaking awesome.
But the mycelium in the soil, right? Like was what he was talking about
it's
is
like
it
all
keeps
connected.
Yeah, well, it's connected. It's a gigantic network.
Yeah.
But it also feeds minerals like phosphorus to the plants.
Okay.
So it acts as a net. So when you put phosphorus in the soil with mycelium backing like that, networked, like it like holds like 80 to 90% of that phosphorus in the soil instead of letting it all wash out.
Okay.
Which keeps that soil fertile for way longer.
Yeah, so they're like the savings bank.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot more than what they got credit for.
And we really only figured that out like in the last 12 years.
yeah, the shit's wild.
Like we've been farming for 12,000 years and nobody ever even thought about that idea.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like just in the past 10 years, what have we learned new that wasn't there before? Or was there, but we just kind of like you were saying, like, it can be right in front of you, but you're not seeing it.
Yeah, and a lot of people are like, well, we've already invented everything. What else is there left to do?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, goddamn, I can think of like 40 things.
Goddamn.
Oh, yeah, that was... All right, so this will be the last thing I'll ask you then.
Okay.
Since it's we're running long.
Yep, my coffee is out.
Yeah, you want some more?
No.
Okay, so if you could think of or invent any jobs that aren't being done currently. Like, I feel like we're getting to a point where a lot of the jobs that we have right now are becoming non-existent, or like we don't have to do them anymore, right? To a large extent. So I want to start thinking about jobs that you see that need to be done that aren't being done right now that could definitely be, an avenue towards, because I feel like there's like an infinite amount of jobs out there, that aren't being done. There's like so many things on the planet that need done right now, and like it doesn't feel like anybody's doing them. Everyone's doing these like nonsensical things, that like really is not helping.
Fuck, I don't even know how to answer that.
Right?
Like, because it's like, well, we get rid of jobs and put in robots, or like you check out your own groceries at the store now instead of paying somebody to...
Exactly. But that opens that person up to do what?
Now what? Collect unemployment.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Especially to get people from what the normal is, from what we created, like the normal.
Yeah.
And even like school was created to get us prepared to work in a factory. Like,
right, exactly.
That's like they put us on that time schedule. They give us a break. You get recess or whatever, lunch. And it was all created for us to be the Industrial Revolution. But now it's not working the same way.
So what should we prepare our kids to do instead of listening to an authority, instead of having to do mindless jobs what would be the opposite of that? You know what I mean?
I assume trade, just having a trade, something that you can
Yeah.
offer, but fuck, what is it? Like,
Right.
this is why I don't have kids, because
This
it's like,
is the
Dad,
question.
what should I be, Dad?
This would keep me up at night if I had kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I don't know. To me, and this is my opinion, is that there are things that are massively valuable in our society that are not don't transition well to a monetary system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't buy and sell this type of work energy easily.
Yeah.
Because the value behind it, and this is what we were talking about earlier too, is like, my work energy, if I'm trying to help someone emotionally, or if I'm trying to create a school to teach people emotional education, or to teach things like where you're like kind of being introspective, or like the more like real, like nuance reality, right? Like if the external world isn't really real, which is, I feel like a lot of people agree with that statement, right? Like, then the real work that needs to be done is internally. And so but most people aren't doing that work, or don't know how to.
Yeah. And how do you get paid for doing that type of work too? Like,
yes, exactly. Well, we would call it like a psychotherapist, or we would call it psychiatric help, or any kind of like social work of sorts that exists, and it's becoming more socially acceptable, to go to a shrink per se, right? Like,
oh yeah.
But it used to not be so.
Yeah.
So if that trend continues too, what does that mean? But then also, what does actual education mean? Because we have an unlimited amount of knowledge at our fingertips now, where like there's been tons of studies with kids. You put computers in their hands, and they will learn English to learn how to use the internet, to learn how to like take the computer apart.
When we were younger, we had the encyclopedias that were like, you had to dig it out and see tits of an African girl to see like a boobie or something.
Right.
Like, and now they're just like, let me see what tits look like. Ooh, look at them titties.
Or if I did a report on, a foreign country or something, like
I just go back. My encyclopedia knowledge is like the African section of
National Geographic.
Oh yeah. I'm seeing people shit in the woods, and I'm seeing boobs hang down to the ground.
Yeah. Are humans animals? Yep. Cool. Yeah, I mean, we still definitely are animals. And what does that mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like those types of bridges that like we've really like burned a lot of those bridges with ourselves in a lot of ways too. It's like, well, I gotta go get a haircut because it's like, well, why? Like, why does that happen? Like, why? Like, other animals don't do that,
Yeah, that's right.
Like none of them do. Like, it's weird. We've completely disconnected in so many ways. That like once we start like to embrace that side of ourselves is also to reject a more like religious fervor in a lot of ways too, because we believe these gigantic stories of like, well, if I do this, this, and this, these are all wrong things to do. Okay? Because I read a story and it told me these are wrong, and so that's how I know. Somebody told me that was wrong, so now I don't do that. And it's like, well, yeah, but like, do you want to do it? Like, and is it going to be productive if you do?
Yeah.
Like, and so there's a lot of hidden things, I think, in there too. That like, once we start breaking down those types of walls, things will become more apparent as well,
Yeah.
I don't think that we even want to admit that to ourselves because of how like hardwired we are with a lot of like taboos and just like supernatural ideas, like that just prevent us from going to those places. That's interesting to me. you know,
I'd like to know more about the parallel universe.
right,
Like,
yeah.
you know, like there could be a whole another universe of us not.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like,
Where
it's,
like we destroyed religion like 100 years ago or something.
yeah, something messed up. Like, instead of you stopping at the studio to do this interview,
Oh, yeah.
you kept following the line to, like, I don't
Uh-huh.
even know, the church and doing an interview there. Like,
Right.
where
right.
it's like in a whole different world, you're doing something else.
Doing God's work.
He is doing God's work. Seeing the stop sign, but not stopping. Like,
Yeah.
one part of you is physically stopping, but then the other part of you could be somewhere else.
Well, I mean, I've done that when I was real stoned once, and I got pulled over. And like, that guy was like, "Why are your eyes so red?"
You
I
were the
was
guy
like,
in
"Well,
DC that jumped
I
the
got-
fucking...
That was completely.
Yeah,
by
that was you in
accident.
a
Yeah.
parallel universe.
Yeah. Well, everybody is one person in all parallel universes, maybe. Like, so, all right. So, have you ever read like the Cosmic Egg before? This is probably, I don't know. It's weird how like your stories. Anyway, it does that's a whole different thing. Sorry, but like,
Jesus.
I'm talking too many
Getting
things.
wild.
Yeah.
How many hits of acid did you take before the show?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Am I drooling?
It's residuals
Yeah.
from a few years ago. Yeah, but the idea being that we're all one person, and when we die, we come back as every person that's ever existed, and we keep living in this cycle.
Yeah, I totally believe that. We are
Yeah.
the universe.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I look at it. Like,
Yeah.
when we die, we are the stardust.
And
we
so-
are the galaxies.
And possibly what's past this then is this idea where like we're learning like all of these lessons of how to be every single human, right? From every single dimension of human, right? Like there is not one way to be human that we don't know now. You
Yeah.
know? As a soul or whatever, right? If there's one soul, we know all of it now.
Yeah.
We even know how to be every kind of tree. We know how to be every kind of animal on every planet in an entire universe, right? Like, and that kind of knowledge is apparently what you need to be born as whatever a god is, okay? And so if this is a giant egg that we're inside of, that's like, and then these are the lessons that are just like turning like a rock tumbler until we're smoothed out and like we know what the hell we're doing
Yeah.
finally, you know?
And then they take it all away.
And then you got to start over
Yeah,
again.
fucking
Apparently,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, do this shit again.
But and that's why there's like more enlightened people of sorts,
Yeah.
where enlightenment doesn't exist because enlightenment, it just means that the whole universe is over and we can go home now. We graduated from the universe experience and like we have been born for real.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
That's kind of what I think that's what some people mean by enlightenment. Other people think that you can be enlightened as an individual person, and I don't think that that's even remotely possible because of like how gigantic knowledge and the universe and infinity is. Like we're just an ant, like
Yeah.
in the same sense.
You have to be really open-minded to possibilities. If you exclude the possibilities, then you're like the narrow-minded.
Yeah.
Or, you know what the fuck I'm saying.
So
You got me talking too long now. It's like, now I'm just like, blah, 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 blah.
I know. Now I'm just getting to the baseline of my own philosophy of the world.
Yep. Let's pull out the diagram. Let me pull this.
Now you see here.
Yeah.
Let me break out my cigarette.
That's my little pointer stick. I'm like, whoosh.
Yeah. I'll say one more thing. 'Cause
Yep,
I'm
go
just
ahead.
like it's already in my head.
Yep. Let me hear it. This ain't my interview.
So I sometimes take over. I'm not really good at this yet.
Yeah,
This is number 5.
Take
number
your
5.
time. Take your time.
So, the idea, another Aldous Huxley idea from the Doors of Perception book, is the idea of the cerebral reducing valve, and that's basically just means that your brain is a valve that reduces infinity down to like a bite-size thread of that infinity, and that's what we consider ourselves. Okay, and so this infinity kind of flows through us this is like the mind that we call like the ideas that we can kind of observe. You know, like when we meditate, like we observe ideas that just happen, you know, like, and we have to like unattach ourselves from them because that is not us. Okay. That is just the infinity consciousness that is experiencing this life, right? But the real us is back from that can actually observe that. And that's really where we are. But we're also this, you know, it's kind of a paradox as things are. And so the cerebral reducing valve idea is that we can only really know one thread of all infinity. And so in order to become enlightened, you wouldn't be able to be human anymore in any kind of a way that we know of, you know, just because it's too, I mean,
kind of like the monks that have studied and worshipped so hard that, I don't know, you ever see that monk that's like supposedly never died and he's like totally like petrified and he was just in such a deep state of
like he didn't have to eat anymore. He just used sun as energy.
And he looks like a piece of leather that like you know, he just,
but somehow he's like alive.
So I assume he found it.
Right.
He can't tell us about it because
that there's no words for that anymore. You know, there's no people who invented a language.
I assume there's a way to get to it, but at a cost and a lot of training.
Yeah, and maybe that's everything is its own sacrifice in its own way, and so when you know that, you can't speak about it. And because it's like if your thread of infinity widens, your knowledge becomes so large that it becomes impossible to speak.
That's probably why we only have, you know, we're using a small percentage of our brain because too much information, we would be speechless.
Wow. Cool. Well, that seems like a good place to... Yeah, cheers, man.
Until next time, folks.
Tune in. Same bat time, same bat channel.